Hi, Night Owls. Well, North Korea didn't want to be left out of the nuclear party. Just as the US and Iran are set to meet in Geneva, here comes Pyongyang, releasing stills of Kim Jong-un and his daughter Kim Ju-ai, believed to be his anointed successor. They're wearing matching leather trench coats, and they are watching a synchronized military parade done as only North Korea can do it, right? They can't feed their people, but give them a military fly past and 10,000 soldiers doing, gun twirls, they're on it. And we are told that Kim Jong-un was speaking about how they're going to have more and better nuclear weapons and more and better intercontinental ballistic missiles. Coincidentally, exactly what the US says Iran cannot have. Except I'm not so sure I believe in coincidences. Sure, there was a big Workers' Party Congress going on this week. But Pyongyang is very deliberate about what imagery is released and when. And they're very careful about their messaging. They're considered. So the fact that they're putting themselves out there in this way, I mean, I could say it's giving daddy please pick me vibes, but I do someday want to get a visa to North Korea. Instead, I would say that they are making a point that they are a serious player on the world stage and they shouldn't be forgotten. Other places that shouldn't be forgotten, Sudan. It's not for lack of trying. The UN, NGOs, journalists keep telling us about what is going on there. The fighting that has torn that country apart. Frankly, feels like that country gets torn apart by fighting over and over again. But the RSF and the Sudanese military, when they split, it's just been horrible. Rape, starvation, the killing of civilians. And if it wasn't for some very brave journalists, some very brave NGOs and doctors and people like that, we wouldn't know anything about it. And now that basically they've taken their spoils, places like Al Fasher are firmly in one camp and other places are firmly in another, they have nothing left to fight over, so they've got to move on to something else. So now we're going to have to learn the names of new places like South Kordofan or North Kordofan. And why are we learning this? Because there's gold and oil at stake. There's money to be made for them to continue their wars. So when we hear the UN tell us more about their fact-finding missions on human rights abuses, keep in mind that maybe it's time for us to follow the money, because it is not just about what these players are doing to their own people. It is about who is buying the gold and the oil from them to fund these wars. And then who is selling them the weapons to continue fighting. Because as I've said before, arms manufacturers have been having a few good years. Look, it is hard to stay informed about every crisis in the world. I know this. I feel woefully uninformed about Sudan. And it is hard to care when it is difficult to get into a country, when we don't have always that individual human connection that reportage can bring or knowing somebody can bring. But maybe if we can't have that, we need to bring the shame game a little bit closer and start to care about whether or not there is anything or any accountability that we should be having closer to home. Just a thought. Also a little closer to home, at least for me, Mexico. Oh, it's all back to normal now. Look, tourists are back on the beaches, flights are going, and thankfully for most Mexicans, they are able to get back to work, open up their shops. But normal isn't really what most Mexicans want when it comes to the situation with cartels in that country. There has been a policy pursued, not just with El Mencho, which is like when we're like, oh my gosh, look what happened there, called decapitation. Really horrible title considering the type of violence we see there. You take out a big boss. When you take out a big boss, another big boss comes up. So you take out El Chapo Jr. You take out El Chapo Jr., El Mencho. So what do you think is going to happen now that El Mencho is gone? Sometimes you get one big leader who can keep a cartel together. Other times they fracture. And when they fracture, that violence spills over and creates real problems, greater problems for the people of the country. I would say that it is probably very likely that Mexico can calm things down. That would be arguably what we're seeing, right? The reason things are calm is not because the cartels are gone, it's because the cartels have made their point, and or they are occupied with other things like figuring out who's in charge now. So can FIFA go ahead with the World Cup? Yes, I'm sure they probably can. I would say a better question for us to be asking now is, what is the price the average Mexican is going to have to pay for a deal to be done, for that to happen? Because the truth is the cartels aren't gone and the underlying factors haven't changed.